It is not hyperbole to say that Bryce Young just had the worst rookie season of all time. After trading away 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and Pro Bowl receiver DJ Moore, Young had a rookie year so devastatingly bad, so inept, terrible, and awful, he immediately set his career on a trajectory to be one of the biggest busts ever. He went 2-14, got his newly hired coach Frank Reich fired in just 11 games after going 1-10. This was one of the worst rookie seasons we have ever seen from any quarterback in NFL history. And before we dive into the film, let me show you some stats to illustrate just how bad it was. His 3.68 adjusted net yards per attempt, which is yards per pass attempt while incorporating sacks, touchdowns, and interceptions, was the 5th worst not in 2023, but in all of NFL history. But as we know, football is all about the team, not just the individual, and so the film will reveal to all of us the ingredients that made up this sheet sandwich. There were 3 main ingredients that led to Bryce's failure. He struggled, his offensive line was atrocious, and his receivers couldn't create separation. Each of these problems bled into the next, which created the perfect storm of awful. Because of these receiver woes, and because of the offensive line failing to protect for more than 2 seconds, we'll see examples of both of these, the Panthers were forced to run the same concept over and over and over, and became extremely predictable. Teams played a ton of man coverage against them because nobody could win one-on-one. Watch the lack of separation created by both receivers outside. When you don't have perimeter receivers who can win one-on-one, it creates 2 problems. Defenses condense inside because they don't respect those matchups, so they don't give extra help to those matchups, which then in turn positions more bodies over the middle where the quarterback has to work because he knows he can't target outside with any success. You can see the Jaguars playing straight man coverage with 1 high safety plain as day, looked to be bringing the blitz, so Young audibles to an ISO curl outside, just mono-y-mono with tight end Steven Sullivan, but he can barely create any separation, and the pass should have been intercepted. This is partly on Sullivan, but also on the Panthers' terrible offensive line, where their pass protection repeatedly broke down throughout the season. This is an extremely straightforward protection call. The right slides for these 3, the left mans up these 2, and Chuba Hubbard has the walked up linebacker who's showing blitz. But watch Bradley Bozeman just olay his man going by, let's both go by, Young feels the heat and misses his mark. The Panthers' pass protection led to him being pressured repeatedly, where he struggled, but he was then also forced to hold the ball longer because his receivers couldn't create separation, which turned his season into a nightmare. All of this was recipe for a disaster. Because they couldn't win on the outside, they were forced to run concepts over the middle, but they just ran one concept over and over, and defenses knew it. Here we have the bounce concept, which we've talked about before. It's a horizontal stretch, high-low concept, which means it's designed to stretch out a defender horizontally by putting 2 receivers in a zone to force him to choose. If he drops for the dig, the sit pivot is open, and if he crashes on the underneath route, the dig comes wide open. This is the exact concept that Matthew Stafford torched Burrowhead with in Super Bowl 56, which is a staple that every team in the league incorporates. But because the Panthers can't win outside, their offensive line is terrible, and Young struggles to throw the deep ball, which we'll see more of in a bit, teams knew what they were going to do because they ran bounce constantly. Some defenses would just stick in that 1-eye coverage and blitz and comfortably defend the concept one-on-one so they didn't have to worry about any defenders getting stretched out in zone. Others essentially match the concept, which is like a mix of man and zone where you're selling out a little more aggressively to stop bounce if you know it's coming. And defenses always did. Against 4 deep quarters, the flats are one of the areas to target, but the Texans know the Panthers can attack outside. Watch the linebacker drop off the line knowing where the dig is coming in, and Young has nowhere to throw. Carolina tried using motion to fool defenses so they wouldn't know they're running bounce, but every team reads their scouting reports and knows the Panthers are gonna run it on repeat. As the motion is coming, watch the Jaguars secondary audible to defend bounce. Devin Lloyd and Rashawn Jenkins are ready for it, so Lloyd sits down for the sit pivot, honestly does a good job of guarding the dig too, and Jenkins jumps the route, exploiting the deep part of the field, and nobody is open. Week after week after week, they force the same exact concept on film, so defenses like the Jaguars and the Falcons knew they could cheat to take away the heavy over-the-middle attack. Young reads this out correctly, cover 2 zone with 2 deep safeties, bounces better against cover 2 than cover 1 because he'd be running the dig right into that middle of the field safety. So at the snap, he sees both safeties drop, he has the look he wants, and once Hayden Hurst clears Troy Anderson, he lets it rip, but Jessie Bates knows what's coming. He completely cheats over from his assignment of guarding a deep half. He's done his homework. He reads Young's eyes, breaks the rules of the Falcons' coverage, and intercepts the pass on what was a good ball. The Panthers' answer for how to stop defenses from doing this is actually in this play. If Young had more time and felt more comfortable, he'd feel Bates flying down, then hit Thielen over the top deep. But this is where Young's faults come into play. He was arguably the league's worst deep ball thrower. He barely threw deep, just 8.9% of the time, which was 36th highest. His yards per attempt was just 8.6, which was 38th highest, and his QB rating was just 60. The more defenses had their safeties fly down to attack these bounce concepts, the more space it opened up deep for bigger plays, but he never exposed these holes. Against Atlanta, after Bates kept crashing down, they had this post come open over the top, but the Panthers don't have guys who can beat press coverage, and Young just doesn't have a ton of accuracy deep. A lot of the time he wouldn't beat defenses deep because honestly, he just lost his confidence. He either didn't keep his eyes down the field, didn't feel comfortable with pressure, and it hurt the Panthers' offense. Here's a drive concept, similar in a lot of ways to bounce, where assuming the safety will dive on the dig again, they have the free release Mingo to hit him over the top, and when the safety crashes, Mingo is NFL open. With all this space to throw to and inside leverage, this is wide open by Sunday football standards. But Young quickly comes off of it and hits the check down underneath. Then the very next play, they have Thielen run a double move off of bounce. They know the safety is coming down, Thielen comes open, but Young comes off too quickly, and while he completes the pass, the Panthers offense struggled creating big-time explosive plays throughout the year. Carolina has upgraded their offensive line this offseason, but still Young is gonna have to learn how to become more comfortable with pressure and muddy pockets. Because while Calais Campbell is all up in his business, he needs to keep his eyes down the field because he knows the safety is about to get exposed deep, so he has to maneuver Campbell and let her rip, but he does not. You can see throughout this game the impact on an offense when the defense does not respect you throwing deep. Sure, adding more speed at receiver will help, but Young has to realize that Bates didn't give a rat's ass about anything deep, even though it kept coming open, so he played more shallow. Watch how he doesn't gain more than 2 yards at the snap. So while typically in most offenses this would be open, and by the way, check Mingo winning deep, Bates easily intercepts Young for his second pick of the day. Still, Bryce had some nice plays in his rookie season, like here on drive, he knows the safety is crashing on the dig, so he throws back shoulder to protect his receiver. This is an absolute dime. We just talked about how awesome this type of throw is last week with Jaden Daniels, so there is some good in here. But for him to develop as the type of Drew Brees quarterback he was supposed to be coming out of Alabama, he'll have to become more comfortable in tighter NFL pockets to allow himself to do whatever he can to vision over these massive behemoths protecting him up front. Sure, the pass protection was not good at all, but there were too many times where he didn't see the field well enough and created extra problems for himself. I mean, look at this play. This time the safety clears way out so the dig is open. We'll look at the other angle in a sec, but look how clean this pocket is. He steps up, DJ Chark is coming open right on time, but Young holds the ball and runs forward, creating a way more difficult play. Look at where his eyes go. He starts right, left, middle, left again, back to middle, back to left, then gets absolutely crunched. This throw is open right now, pocket is clean, feet are set, but instead he runs up into pressure and is just asking to get his twig body snapped in half. I do think there was some good that he put on film, but things are not looking bright for his future. His weaknesses, like his arm strength and inability to play on time, were magnified, and his strengths coming out of college really didn't show up much at all. To develop, he'll need to learn to play comfortably from the pocket and be the distributor I thought he'd be coming out. He's gonna need to rework his footwork because he never plays on time, and he's gonna have to develop some consistency throwing down the field to make over-aggressive defenses pay. Crazier things have happened in the NFL. Everybody and their mama on Reddit will tell you Peyton Manning stunk it up in his rookie season, throwing those 28 interceptions. So I guess that's a ray of hope for Young. But watching this past season, combing through the stats and grinding the film, it certainly looks bleak. The Panthers have a new plan in place with Young's third head coach in 2 seasons. Dave Canales has worked wonders before, so now that he's here in Carolina, it's time for him to work more miracles.